Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. My name is Alvaro and I'm a front-end tech lead at Thousand as part of Cisco. So as part of my role, one of the things I have to do is basically keep an eye on the front-end ecosystem, no? The different technologies that are out there, and make sure that we are making the most out of them in some of our products. No? So what we're going to do for the next 50 minutes is that we're going to talk about our future programming language, our favorite programming language, JavaScript. So I have 3 goals for the next 49 minutes and a half. The first one is that we're going to cover what's coming next for JavaScript, but then I also want to make sure that by the time you leave the talk, I want you to basically be able to keep up to date with all the things I'm going to talk about now, so that, long story short, if you see this talk in 3 years again, then you can say, oh, Alvaro showed me how to keep an eye on all of this, so maybe I can attend a different talk. And then, last but not least, I'm going to give you a lot of resources. So through the presentation that I will share with you at the end of the talk, there are a lot of QR codes, and that are clickable. The idea is not for you to scan them now, but it will help you if you want to dive deeper in some of the areas, because at the end of the day, we have a lot to cover, and in 50 minutes, I don't have enough time to actually go super, super deep in details. So if you want to elaborate more in any of the areas that I'm going to talk about, then you can download the slides and then go through the documentation. OK, so let's talk about JavaScript. If we are going to talk about JavaScript and the future of JavaScript, maybe it's worth taking a look at how JavaScript is actually defined. No? Like, if you think about it, I'm pretty sure, well, can I check? How many JavaScript developers do we have here? I assume. Nice, OK. Then if you're a JavaScript developer, then you probably notice that you never had this issue like backend developers have, no, where you have to upgrade to the latest version of JavaScript, no, or go from Java 17 to Java 21, or Kotlin, Python 2 to Python 3, right? This doesn't happen in JavaScript. And the reason why that happens is not because the language is not evolving, it's basically because JavaScript is always backwards compatible. So long story short, if you use const, no, like you define a variable with const, you can make sure that that JavaScript code that is using const will never break, and it will always run in any browser available out there, right? And this is something that is very good because we don't have to worry about breaking changes, but at the same time, we will see that it's a bit tricky when it comes to developing new features in JavaScript, no? In the JavaScript language. So going back to who takes care of the definition of JavaScript, there is a committee called the Technical Committee 39, or TC39, and they are part of a company called ECMA International. So ECMA International is a company that works on defining specifications, and they try to standardize different technologies. And one of the committees, number 39, has multiple specs. No, they have things like the internalization API. They are the ones that take care of defining JSON. But the one that we are going to take a look at today, or the important one for today, is ECMAScript. So ECMAScript, you can think of it as a document or the specification of how JavaScript is meant to work. No? The whole programming language of JavaScript is defined here. So if I want to show you an example, let's go to a while loop, no, in JavaScript. This document will show you how, OK, so how does a while statement look like? You have the keyword while, you have an expression, and then you have a statement. OK, what is the semantic of this while loop? OK, given a while with an expression and a statement, we are going to evaluate the expression. If the value of this expression is false, then that means that we are done with the while. If it's not, then we are going to evaluate the statement, no, what's inside the while. And there are different types of statement that you can have inside a while, and so on and so on. As you can see, this is super technical. I don't encourage you to go through this when you want to learn JavaScript. But at the same time, no, when we talk about the future of JavaScript, what we are talking about also is what are the changes, or the upcoming changes, or the recent changes to this document. So now the next question is, OK, how does this document get updated? So the way it works ECMAScript is a specification that gets released every year around summer. So in fact, that's very good for this talk because the next version is going to be released in June, which means that we are done with the changes that are going to make it to the standardization for 2025. No? And when the standardization with ECMAScript 2025 is closed, that means that browsers are all good to start implementing all the changes in the JavaScript engines, and then they can, I don't know, for example, let's say we add support for a new while loop, then the browsers can go to this document, no? The JavaScript engines developers, like Google with V8, no? Or Firefox with SpiderMonkey, no? They all go to this document, and then they see how they can implement the new features. As I said, it gets released every year, and the way it works is that anyone here in this room, you can suggest any changes on this document. As I said, not breaking changes, but like you can, if there is something you don't like, you can actually go ahead and say like, is it possible to support this new syntax in a while loop? The way this is handled is by proposals. So anyone can submit a proposal. So let me show you how the repo looks like. TC39 has a repo called proposal, as I said, where it has like all the different proposals that are out there in terms of changes that they want to do to this ECMAScript document. That is new features, changing the behaviors in some minor areas. Probably you saw that there is this stage 3. What does it mean? Let's go very quick to what it means. So when you submit a proposal, and as I said, anyone can can request a change, the way it works is that first you need to find someone from the committee to sponsor your idea, no? to champion your idea. Someone that thinks, okay, it's worth spending time on your idea. And the committee that is formed by like researchers, is formed by like engineers from like big companies, no? Like Microsoft, by Google. Anyone can champion this idea. As soon as you find someone, then you are ready to start like drafting a proposal. And what we are doing here is that, okay, Alvaro came with an idea for ECMAScript 2026. Is this the right solution? Is this the right approach to what we're trying to solve? Is this creating a new while loop syntax the right approach? Maybe not, maybe yes. And then the committee discusses whether it's the right approach or not. And then once we are ready, and then once everyone is on board on, okay, we are going to do the while loop or something different, then we go to the stage 2. That is where the other stage where proposals spend a lot of time on. That is when you start defining the technical aspects, the API, the changes that you're going to do in the document that I showed you before, no? Like all the granular details of the changes. Once everything is closed, it's ready for validation. And once it's validated, it's a candidate. When it's a candidate, that means that any JavaScript engine can actually start like implementing the changes on their JavaScript engine. No? V8, SpiderMonkey, I mentioned them already. I think as soon as 2 JavaScript engines have implemented their changes in their engines, we're good to go. You can consider it closed. You can consider it finished. And that means that it's part of the next ECMAScript version. Okay, this is one of the 3 entities that defines JavaScript, and it's probably the most important one. So we will spend a lot of time on ECMAScript today. There are a few more that maybe are interesting for you. So if you use JavaScript in the browser, then there is also WhatWG, that is this one here, that by the way, as a fun fact, they are also the owners of HTML, in the same way that I showed you the document for the specification for JavaScript with ECMAScript. There is also WhatWG is the equivalent that takes care of defining HTML. So if you are curious about it, here you have the whole spec. And as another fun fact, by the way, if you use HTML, I'm pretty sure you do, I think there's a breaking change. Same as I said, there shouldn't be backwards, everything should be backwards compatible. I think they are actually introducing a breaking change as part of, now in May, about like H1 headers. So if you use H1 headers and you're not styling them, maybe you want to keep an eye on that one. But we are not talking here about HTML, we are talking here about JavaScript. So things that are JavaScript, or we think that they are JavaScript, and they are specific to browsers. the DOM. No? When you do document.querySelector, that's something that you won't see it in the JavaScript specification. This is something owned by WWG. No? I do query, I do DOM, right? Like, the interface is event and how you interact with the documents, what is a node. All of this is defined by the DOM specification. And one that is very important, no? Console, when you do a console.log, in fact, what you're doing is like, you are not using what is defined in JavaScript, is you are using what is defined by WWG. There are others like storage, local storage, and session storage, and so on and so on. So WWG is the same. They also have like their own repos where you can actually keep an eye on any upcoming changes. The other one that I want to talk about is like if you use JavaScript in the backend, like Dino, Node, Ban, right? Any of these. Then there is this committee called WinterTC. It used to be called WinterGC. And they take care of just JavaScript for non-browsers environments. No? And WinterGC, well, now WinterTC, it was before it was like part of W3C, and there was like a working group taking care of all of this, but it was very, very slow implementing, like adding new changes. So all the investors, they were not very happy. So they decided to move to ECMA International. So now it's part of, same as we have the TC39 since January this year, now we also have the TC55, that is WinterTC. And they do things like the CLI for JavaScript in the backend, sockets in non-browser environments, and then in the same way that we need a console in the front end, we will probably need it in the backend. So they are now working on defining the minimum common API that you need from the front end side of things in the backend side of things. No? So you can see how here probably you won't have things like parent node, as we saw before, but you probably have console. No? OK, so these are the three main entities that are going to shape the future of JavaScript, especially ECMAScript. ECMAScript is the most active one, the one that has the most support, and the one that introduces changes pretty much every year. Let's go to see now what are some of these new features that have been introduced in 2025. So as I said, like the draft for ECMAScript 2025 was closed, like if I remember correctly, like last month. And now they are working on the draft for 2026. As part of ECMAScript 2025, there are 9 features that are coming to the language. And there are like these 9. I grouped 2 of them, import attributes and JSON modules in the first row is 2 of them in one. And we're going to focus mainly on the top 5. Alvaro, why don't you talk about the bottom 5, the bottom 4? Yes, the reason is because like they are like 3 regex changes in terms of like now you can define like you can capture the same group twice. Now you can use the same name for groups multiple times in a regex. Then there is the regex escape, and they also introduce a new data type, but it's very specific. So I don't think there is that much value. They are super straightforward. I think there is more value if we focus on the top 5, and then we will go through other proposals that are in the oven getting cooked. So let's do this. Before we do that, I'll show you very quick how anyone here can in the future like take a look at this information in case. So you get familiar with this whole repo. No? Here there's a finished proposals that are the ones that are already in stage 4. And then here you can see the expected publication year. So these are like the escape method that is mentioned, the new type that I briefly like mentioned, and some of the features that we're gonna talk about today. You can always see what year the proposal made it to stage 4, but then you can also see, like for which ones are now getting implemented by browsers, which ones are in validation, which ones are defining the API, no? And here you can spend days. It's super interesting because like there are a lot of like very, very cool proposals. The cooler they are, the longer they will take to get implemented, by the way. Spoiler. So now you know. OK, so for now, let's focus on ECMAScript 2025. What are the features that are now part of the standard? Well, that will be part of the standard that is coming next month in summer. And And let's start with something super easy. Okay, let's start slowly, and then we can take it from there. So there are like new set methods. So if you know a bit about, no, like I said, like group of unique elements. If you know a bit of like set theory, you know you can do operations on sets. The way you do right now operations in any sets is in JavaScript. Is like we don't have like methods to actually like do proper. You need to rely on libraries for if you want to do something like merge two sets. You can either use a library or you can iterate through one of the sets and then do the operation of merge with the other set. But there is no concept of like union. There is not like a method called union in JavaScript, right? Until now. So I use as an example, I didn't know what to use. So these are like the villains of Harry Potter 1 and 2. I assume that most of the people would be familiar with Harry Potter. But then we have one in common, that is Voldemort, and then you have like Quirrell and the Basilisk, each one in Harry Potter 1 and Harry Potter 2. Okay, so if you had an implementation of your own implementation of Union, or you were using a library, good news, you don't have to anymore. So now there is like all the seed theory methods that you can think of, like union, difference, intersection, symmetric difference, or even like operations like is subset of or is superset of. All of this is now available for you to use. When I say they are available, and then maybe we can introduce another tool here, there is a website called Can I Use that answers exactly that question. It's like, can I use the feature that Alvaro is talking about right now? Let's see. So for example, let's say we are talking about set union. No? You want to use set union. You can see here, let me zoom in. You can see here how 87.5% of all the users, no, all the people navigating the network, then have a browser that supports set.union. Okay, and now it's up to you and your company or to decide whether this is enough or then you want to wait a bit longer or not. And this is because, like for example, Chrome released it in 2024, and I think Safari released it in 2023, right? So people have been updated the browsers, so now 88% support this. It's a very useful tool, and then you can use it for any of the features that we're going to cover today. I know more or less their numbers, so I will also tell you, but like, okay. Next feature. So now we're going to cover something called promise.try. Before we talk about that one, I will want to introduce you to the problem, and then we can see the solution. So the problem, imagine that I have a async function that is called getRedditPosts. No? And all this function does is that it goes to it fetches like the top posts of a subreddit called Monster Hunter Wilds. That is a game that I've been playing for too long, for too much these days. And then what we do is that we transform that to a JSON, and then later on with the promise syntax, we use like console log it or show an error if there is an error. No, very straightforward. Now let's say that we want to add a cache. No, we're going to call this method multiple times, so we don't want to keep fetching them. We just want to, if we fetch them once, then we don't want to fetch it again. And then right now that we have a promise, no, because it's an async function, now we introduce the cache, super straightforward. We have a variable, and then after fetching, we store the value in the cache, and then we return the cache. And if the cache is not null, then we are good. We just return the cache. So we're still getting the Reddit post, not in an async way anymore. Now it's also in a sync way. But now you can see how I had to change the signature of my function. Now I can return a promise, or I can just return the Reddit response. And in both cases, I'm returning the Reddit posts. But my implementation is not complaining about it, right? Like, because when I return the promise, it's fine. But if I return Reddit response, the object itself doesn't have a function, a method then, right? And then this will break. So if you call it twice, no, if you're using the cache, then this will say type error, this is not a function. How do we solve this? So the thing is that you can think of this as okay, there are ways to solve this in getRedditPosts, but the person who did this proposal was like, okay, as the consumer of getRedditPosts, I don't care whether I'm getting them asynchronously or synchronously. I will cover both cases, but if it comes synchronously, I still want to be able to do .then, .catch, and I don't want to have to deal with that in my implementation consuming getRedditPosts. And this is where promise.try comes to save the day. Promise.try, what it will do is that it will always grab, your method in a promise, and then you can always assume that what is returned is another promise. So if you return an object like cash, then what it will happen is that this will be a promise.resolve of cash. If you throw an exception, then it will be rejected. It will be a promise.reject, and then it will be caught in the catch of the promise, no? So yeah, very cool. I wanted to, and then some people might be asking, like, Alvaro, like, I never had this issue. I never thought about this. Why do people actually like ask for this? This is why it's very interesting to go through some of these specs. So, for example, for promise.try, I can show you, like, in the rationale, they show how, okay, what are the typical, what does user, like developers usually use for these cases? And there is this package, that is an NPM library from 4 years ago that has like 50 million and a half weekly downloads, right? So 50 million and a half like weekly downloads for people who just want to do this, who want to emulate this promise.try, no? So if you have this dependency, you can remove it now. This is great because that's 50 million and a half weekly downloads that we no longer have to do because your browser supports it already. So another NPM library that you could potentially get rid of. Okay, next one, iterator helpers. How many people here are familiar or they use generators in JavaScript? Okay, nice, awesome. So I'll cover it like super quick, what a generator is. So a generator, you can think of it as a function, but like instead of returning one value, or just giving you one return, you can call it multiple times. It's a generator that every time you call it, it will generate the next value of the generator, no? The syntax is, as you see on the left, no? You define that it's a generator by this asterisk here, and then instead of returning, what you do is that you yield new values. So this generate natural generator, all it does is like, it will give me 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 every time I call it, no? And then you can see how it's used here. When do you want to use this? So let's say, for example, you have a table with 10,000 or 100,000 elements, no? Then probably you have an array with all these values, and now let's say that you have to, I don't know, map them or reduce them or do something, well, map, filter, whatever. You have an issue, and that is like, okay, I have a table with 100,000 elements. You know as a fact that 100,000 elements don't fit in the screen. So do I really need to map or process or filter or reduce all of them? Or can I just like focus on the ones that I'm actually showing the user? And this, in terms of performance, is huge because we're going from only processing 50, from processing 100,000 to only processing like 50, 100, or the ones that you actually care about. The issue is that generators didn't support, the reason why a lot of people might use list instead is because like, okay, I have filter, map, I have all of these methods that generators don't provide you until now. So now you can use generators to make your code way more performant and still use like all the cool stuff from or all the functional programming or like methods that are in lists like map, filter, reduce. You can also like do things like, okay, I want the generators to only generate me the first 10 elements, or starting from the 11th element with take and drop. And what this will do, the difference between this and doing it on a list, is that what this map will do is generate, it won't give you all the values, it will give you a generator. So next time you call the generator, so when you call the generator, it will give you the mapped value that in this case, for example, it would be n multiplied by n, that is the square of the value. But this is not going through all the natural numbers and multiplying them. No, whenever you need them, I will multiply them for you. There are others, like you can transform the values to array, you can do predicates and check that some of them fulfill a condition, find, and then you can do for each. It's pretty much everything that you can do on lists as of today. So if you want to make your code more performant, this is a good way. For the last one, we are going to see that in action because I don't think I can just show you on slides. So we're going to take a look at import attributes and JSON modules. So, and for that, I'm going to jump into my terminal. Okay. Awesome. So let me show you what I have here. So I have a repo. Well, I have a index.html. I'm not using any Vite, Webpack, fancy anything, just like HTML, a JavaScript module, and that's it. And it is a table. You can see the table here. It is a table where the body is empty. And then I have an index.js that all it will do is that it will import, it will take the body, and then for each participant in this JSON file, it will like render them in the table. No? Right now, it will. You might be wondering what is this? I've never seen this before, or probably you haven't seen it before. If I remove it and then I try to show you the table, it won't work. And the reason why that doesn't work is because when you do an import, what we're importing are usually no, always JavaScript modules. You can see, in fact, how this is when I'm fetching participants.json, that is a JSON, is loaded as a script, right? Because it's an import. And then, of course, based on the HTML spec, what is happening here is that, OK, you are, I'm trying to load a module script, but you are giving me a JSON. And given that they don't match, I'm not going to do anything with it. And then it breaks. This is very important. This needs to happen, no? Because imagine that this JSON was something that is from a third party, no? And then someone changes the JSON, and then instead of returning a JSON, now they return a function that is like malicious JavaScript code. Then you would be screwed. You would be running like JavaScript code on your platform, and then that you don't know of. So that's why this needs to be enforced. And JavaScript cannot rely just on the extension of the file, no? To know what type of module is. So that's why they introduced as part of ECMAScript 2025 this syntax that is 2-in-1. No? On one hand, we have that now when you import something, you can add attributes. In this case, we have with and then an object. And the second one is that the first type that is now supported is called is the JSON modules. So now, if I refresh the page, now you will see how I can actually see the list of attendees here. No? And now this is handled as a JSON. And you might be wondering, Alvaro, OK, but I can do this already on my. I'm pretty sure I can do this already on my project. Well, not this. If you can do that, that's probably because like your bundler, Vite, Webpack, they are processing your JavaScript module to allow you to do this. But the browser itself doesn't understand that. So what you're serving to the user, the JavaScript file that you're serving to the user is a compiled version by the bundler that allows you, that will make some tricks to make sure that you can actually do this. But the browser itself won't let you until you add now with type JSON. OK. So these are the first, these are, how are we with time? We're good with time. So these are like the 5 features that I wanted to cover for ECMAScript 2025. And now we're going to take a look at what is next, like what is in the oven. Before that, I want to introduce you to State-of.js. State-of.js is a super, this sounds like a spam. State-of.js is a survey that I have, I'm not related to it at all. Done to every JavaScript developer. Well, for any JavaScript developers, they can like submit their answers to the survey, and it's super cool because it allows you to understand a lot of things in terms of like the front end, well, the JavaScript ecosystem. No, so for example, every time there is a discussion about like front end frameworks, then you can see here things like, okay, for all the frameworks, no, like React is the most used one, no, React. But then let's see at interest. And if you sort by interest, people are more interested on Svelte, no? On learning Svelte these days. In terms of positivity, the ones that people are more happy with are with Svelte, with Vue, and with React. No? So it gives you a very good overall idea when you are actually thinking whether you want to use a new framework, whether you want to use a new technology. Go here and check what's the perception from the community. And one of the questions that they ask is the pain points. That is basically, what do you hate about JavaScript, right? So you can see how there is a whooping, like, a huge difference between the first one and the second one. Like for every developer that submitted an answer, right, for every 3 developers, one of them said, OK, I want types in JavaScript. I don't have types in JavaScript. No, we have them in TypeScript, right? That is later on compiled to JavaScript, but we don't have them in JavaScript, so I want types. Then the second one is something that probably a lot of people handle here already, that is like browser support and how some features are not ready yet in some browsers, Internet Explorer 11, I'm looking at you. Then the handling of dates, like the infamous object date, and then TypeScript support. So you can see here like some of the main pain points. Question is, how do we solve these problems in the community, or what is like right now being proposed for this? Let's go, for example, to the first one, the biggest one, the elephant in the room, static typing and TypeScript support. So Microsoft in 2020, they submitted a proposal for adding types to JavaScript, which is actually quite interesting. As of now, as I said, what we do is that we compile TypeScript code, and then we transform it to JavaScript in something that the JavaScript engine can understand. The JavaScript engine will parse it, execute it, and show it to the end user. The proposal is, OK, instead of doing that, we are going to have just JavaScript and types that you can send to the user, to the browser, and then the browser should be able to run it. Let's take a look at the proposal itself. The syntax, or at least the first ideas of the syntax, is very, very similar to what we have right now in TypeScript. This proposal acknowledges how people want types, and then if you have used TypeScript ever, then this will probably ring a bell, like how you can define the type of a parameter, or how you define the type of a constant or of a variable, or how you define a new interface, a new type, and so on. If you have ever used TypeScript, then you will realize that this is exactly the same syntax, and it's on purpose, because the idea is to avoid all this pain that you otherwise we would have later on of migrating TypeScript to JavaScript with types. This proposal acknowledges that there is a lot of different ways of defining types, and like tuple, union, intersections, like object types, array type shorthand, and they are not very happy about that. So they are trying to find like something a bit more simplified, so that now that they have the option to redefine TypeScript, they also want to simplify it a little bit. These are the good news. That is, like, we have something right now getting discussed. The bad news, as always, because this is something very demanded, is that the last time this was discussed was in September 2023. So as I said, the technical TC39, they have a meeting every 3 months, 2-3 months, and then it's super cool because you can see in this GitHub repo that is, where are you? Okay, that is the TC39 notes repo. You can see for every meeting, everything. Like, it's a transcript of everything that was discussed. And this is super interesting for understanding what are the concerns, why things are not moving forward, why are people pushing for something or not. And in this case, you can see that this is a heated topic. There is a lot going on here. If I go to the summary, it looks like the committee, they have like concerns. Well, yeah, they have concerns about the complexity of the grammar, and and it's fair. They are also wondering if what is the motivation of the proposal, because at the end of the day, if we have JavaScript with types and it's static analysis, we still need some way, a tool to actually analyze this. That right now, that's what TypeScript is doing. So they are wondering, okay, we are gonna still need a checking tool for this. So what's the value of adding the types if you still need a checking tool, and therefore we cannot avoid it's not the compilation anymore, but it's a checking anyways. So yeah, let's see how that one goes. But it's like work in progress. And now let's talk about the second most like pain points, because browser support at the end of the day is not controlled by the JavaScript language itself. It's about the JavaScript engines. So let's talk about dates. For dates, there is a very interesting proposal too that is in stage 3 called temporal. And temporal is actually quite deep and quite like the documentation is very good. Right, but it tries to solve the issue that we have right now with the class date, and also it will allow you to remove if you are using Moment.js, if you are using Luxon, if you are using any of these libraries that I'm pretty sure most of us do, because like working with date is a nightmare. Temporal is trying to aim to get rid of all of this, to get rid of these dependencies and also the date class. Fun fact, or if you are wondering why the date class, the date object is so bad. When JavaScript was created, was the first implementation of JavaScript in 1995 by Brendan. He only had like 10 days to actually do JavaScript, so he was like working very fast on it. So then he went to Java, and then from Java it took like some classes in like date. So he took the implementation of date of 1995, and that's the one that as of today, we are still using in JavaScript. Because as I said, we cannot make breaking changes. They need to be backwards compatible, right? So you cannot change the date class now, because the date object now, because you would break the internet. 2 years later, 1997, Java said that the date class, the date object sucks, and it was deprecated, right? But, or most of the methods were deprecated. And they were implemented in later versions of Java, no? So we've been stuck for the same date implementation as Java 1995. So I think it's happy 30th anniversary of the date implementation that we have right now in JavaScript. Oh, so how does temporal solve this issue? Let's take a look. The documentation, as I said, is very, 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 very good. And I want to cover other features, but the proposal, they work with like different types, like concepts of times. One of them is the wall clock time type. That is basically, we don't have a clock here right now, but like not this 11:38 on the 7th of May, right? This can mean, this will be, this value that you see here will be, this was the same value as an hour ago in Spain, for example, right? So this doesn't mean, this is not an instant, this is not a moment, a specific moment in time. You know that is UK, but if you only had this, then you wouldn't know, right? So for this type of exact time, they use the zone date time, that is a date, a time, but also given the zone, and also the instant, that it uses like epoch. And what can you do with, why is this better than the date class? Let's go to the cookbook, for example. So in the cookbook, you can see how to use like temporal. So for example, temporal has this now class, and then with now, you can do something like, okay, now plain date ISO, I want to show the date to string, and then it gives you the date. Okay, I also want the time, so it also has a class, plain date time ISO, and then you can do to string. Nothing Nothing wow so far, but it's already better than date, because with date, getting the string was a bit tricky. Let me show you something like more powerful. Like, this is my favorite example of temporal, that is working with time zones and flights, and let's see how easy it's like playing with dates. So for example, in this case, we have a flight from Hong Kong to LA, and the flight is at 11:55 in Hong Kong, and then we arrive the same day at 9:50 a.m., right? Now that we have these two dates with different time zones, how long does it take? From how long will the flight take? It's as easy as you have the departure, and you want to check how long until arrival, and then it will say, okay, it will take you 12 hours and 55 minutes. Easy, yes, one until. Or things like adding times, no? That I don't think you cannot do this with date. I have the departure from Hong Kong, and I don't know when I'll arrive, but I know that it will take me 775 minutes. And so you can define an object called duration, an instance, with 775 minutes. And then, given the departure date, you can just add how long it will take. You can set the new time zone, and then voila, it gives you the new time zone. No? Which, good luck doing this with date. Good luck. So yeah, very, very, very powerful. So this one, I have a lot of good news. This one was created. This proposal was created 5 years ago. You can see, like when the repo was created 5 years ago, and there was a lot of drama and discussion. This has been in stage 3 for a long time, but if you go to can I use, then it's 0%. Okay, that's not the good news. The good news is that for the first time ever, now we have a browser that actually implemented temporal. So if you try to use temporal in Firefox 139 to 141, that was released, I mean, the previous one, 138, was released on April 29th, and we are in May. So if it's not released yet, maybe it's not even released yet, but it will release very soon. But for the first time, now we finally have browsers that support temporal. And this is huge, because that means that it's coming. There are a lot of proposals that they got canceled in stage 3 or stage 2 when they realized how complex it was to actually implement them, but not in this case. In fact, if you go to MDN, then you should be able to see the temporal documentation already in all the well-known documentations, no? So yeah, looking forward to it. And by the way, just by the fact that it's 0% right now, that doesn't mean that you cannot use it. I'm pretty sure, I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure, yes. There is polyfills that everything they will do is compile, based on your project. What it will do is it will let you use temporal, and then when you compile your project, it will replace the temporal instances with something different. But at least that way you can start using the syntax of temporal. Okay, now let's go into a bit of drama. Who here is familiar? Is anyone familiar here with JS0 and JS Sugar by raise of hands? Did anyone hear about this? Okay, nice, one person. Okay, so these are 3 very famous front-end developers, and I highly recommend you to follow them. They are very good to keep an eye on the JavaScript ecosystem. And what happened? So there was drama with the TC39 recently. To be more specific, with a proposal about JS Sugar and JS0 regarding the future of JavaScript. Disclaimer, the slides here are not mine, so they are very interesting slides, so don't judge me on this. But these are the ones that will actually be used to define the shape of JavaScript in the future. Anyways, the JavaScript engines developers, like Google, V8, Mozilla, SpiderMonkey, Apple, no, with Safari. All of them, they gather together and then they come with this proposal where they are trying to where we're trying to solve this issue. So before we go to the issue, like they acknowledge that as of today, we already do this. We have like the code that we write that cannot run in browsers. So what we do is that we compile that using different tools. We transform it to something that is understandable by the engine, and then the engine will parse it and will run it. Okay, this is how we do things today, right? The example, for example, I did before with index.html with no vid, no webpack, you can do it, but pretty much in every like big project, you need a bundler. And when we talk about like adding new features, there is these JavaScript engine developers. They found that there are like different issues. Every time you add a new feature in the language, usually the security, the performance, and the stability, they get impacted. And the only one that actually gets improved is the app features, because now we give developers like more like tools to work with. No, it elaborates a lot on why this is the case. But then at the end of the day, what we are doing when we add new language features is that we are prioritizing the developers over the users. Because the users, they care about security, stability, right? They don't care about whether you use temporal or you use date. They want the new feature, right? And they want to make sure that it's safe. So the engine's developers, they want to ensure that security, performance, and stability are granted. And right now, that's not possible, like as we show, because if you think about it, no, JavaScript, 30 years. Imagine maintaining the same code base for this long, right? And then introducing new features. It would be a nightmare, and then this impacts severely the engine. And so the proposal is, where is the proposal? I'll get it for you. Yes, so what is the proposal? The proposal is to split JavaScript in two, basically. So there will be features that are supported by JavaScript Sugar, that is like a superset of JavaScript 0, JS0. That JS0 is what is supported by the browser. Let me show you in this slide because it's even easier. Same as we do with TypeScript, that is something that the browser cannot understand. Let's add a set of features that instead of the browser understanding how they work, then JS Sugar is the one that defines this grammar, and then the compilers make sure that this JS Sugar is removed and is translated to JS0. It's compiled to JS0. This way, we remove the pressure from the JavaScript and from the engine developers, and then it shifts a bit more towards the compilers. What's the issue with this? That now that this has opened Pandora's box, because their concerns are legit, then this has impacted multiple proposals, right? For the first time, we're talking about like splitting the language in two, and a lot of the features, like the fancier features that are out there, like for example, pipe operators, that is something that other languages have already, where you can chain different functions, and then the outcome of the output of the previous function is propagated to the next one, following like this operator. This is exactly the same as this, right? Like it's line 5 and line 7 are exactly the same. So this pipe operator that involves big changes in the grammar, then has been now put on hold as of 3 weeks ago, because this might be something for JS Sugar. So they're going to wait until JS Sugar is sorted before moving forward. Other like pattern matching, that is like a switch case, high level, like a switch case of where you have an object and then you can match the pattern of the object, no? Like for example, a request. If the response of the request has status 200, that means that we did good. If it's 301, we redirect, no? This is another one that looks like it's going to be benched for a little bit. Or some of them have even like being like cancelled, like records and tuples. That is like an immutable version of objects and lists. This one has been This one was archived like last month and has been replaced with something called Composite. As I said, with all the QR codes, you can keep an eye on. You can get more into details, but as they are benched, there is no a lot of line to talk about them now. So what's next for JS? I told you that I was going to give you like some resources for how to keep an eye on this. These are a few newsletters that they have helped me a lot, Front-End Focus and JavaScript weekly. And because I only have like 10 seconds left, I wanted to do an honorific mention to this another feature that is like some browsers are now allowing you to do like, are giving you now APIs for running AI in your browsers, no? And so far Google. And they also run a hackathon that if you go to the hackathon, then you will see like the amount of crazy stuff that people can do with these built-in AI APIs that you can run locally and you don't have to be connected to the network. So very cool. And I think that's everything for me. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, please, you can come and ask me. Thank you.